The purpose of this group is to put people in a room together that would normally never be in a room together.
I used to shy away from property manager. I learned that when you get up to a certain number of units.
Wow, that was a good feeling. So I think that was 2012, 2013.
There are investors who are my clients that haven't even bought it yet.
So tonight we just really want to focus on using everything that happened this year and making it more of a staircase to stand on top of instead of letting it be quicksand to where we drowning and complaining about it. Because that's one of the things I enjoy about the fabric of this group is the culture of, number one, the go-giver culture, but just like the grit. I just don't hear a lot of complaining and griping. We voice our opinions about the nature of the beast, but I mean, what else we gonna do? We chose this industry. We could always do anything else. Flip a burger, sweep a parking lot, and make it real easier, but we choose this lifestyle and everything that comes with it. But it is the community that makes it even more digestible, because I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had to talk with Ronald, Anitra, Jay, Marcel, Clyde, especially, man, in the beginning of the year, anything about construction, because I was clueless, and that's what we're going to talk about today as far as lessons learned. But without this room, without the people in this room, I know me for sure, I would be much further behind than I am today. So the structure of today is just three main questions. Steve is going to start it off, and I'll demonstrate what this hot seat situation will look like today. We got some guests today that, had a very active year, and they started at different points, and they also ended at different points. So we just want to hear from the horse's mouth what this year actually looked, felt, and smelled like from their perspective and their point of view. And we'll just end it off and take some shots later on down the street.
And what they learn and what they're doing next year, what they're taking from this year and what they're gonna apply to next year. So we want to get some guests, the people that come to our events, people that have that attend these things. So we want to get them up here to speak and get those lessons. But we're gonna start with Emile though, right? Because I want to hear what he's learned this year and what he's done this year. So we might kick it off by turning the questions on Emile.
Yeah.
So Emile, I mean, what was your 2022 like, man?
Man, it started out promising coming off of 2021, and my biggest lesson. So it was okay. I remember I asked you if you had to grade your year, what would you give it a grade of? So I definitely would probably give it a C minus, because I would say a lot of 2022 I inherited a lot of perspectives coming from that main wholesale background. So in the beginning of the year, I prided myself saying that I never lost money in this business. Well, with wholesaling, like the odds are very low for you to lose money. But man, when you take title to a property and you start throwing all of those other factors into the pot of, insurance, neighbors. I never had to deal with neighbors before, with just showing a property to anybody. So I would give it a C minus. Overall, it was good. And what was the question again?
So what was the results? What was 2022?
Yeah, so 2022 overall. So we closed 3. 2 are already financed. We got one more that we have to cash out on. And during that time, we had 2 rate hikes. During that time, insurance jumped up on us. So the strategy that we started out with, we definitely had to pivot away from and pivot into some other things. Okay. So overall, I say the year was good, but those were my main lessons, focusing on understanding finance. So coming into the year, debt service coverage ratio was something I never knew anything about. I knew penciling it out, if my mortgage is going to be, $900, I know I can rent it out for $1,200. That should be a deal. But actually getting into it and going through these closings and looking at the settlement statement and learning about escrow, that some of the lenders, when you do these cash outs, you think that you're going to cash out $20,000. Well, nah, they want 6 months of escrow that they just want to keep on the back end. So that could be, $12,000 that you don't even put your hands on, and that $20,000 cash out that you thought you were going to put in your pocket end up being an $8,000 check, right? So those are the type of things that I actually had to learn, because when you see people closing deals on Facebook, or when you see and listen to these Bigger Pockets podcasts, you think, okay, I could do this. But until you actually get into the trenches and get some of these wall wounds, then you actually get a reality of what this looks like. Don't get me wrong, you still can do it, but now you just have to understand what is the approach that I need to take to where I can sleep at night. Because that first quarter was cool. Second through third quarter, like the last 2 quarters besides this last one, I ain't sleep. Because when you buy, you get excited. That's the honeymoon period, and then that construction budget that you have, you start ripping stuff out. Then water start leaking. Then you get a unexpected storm. Then materials start growing feet some type of way and start walking out of the property. So it just feels like you get into these projects and it's way more negatives than positives. So in my opinion now, in my approach, I'm really trying to disqualify a deal as much as possible to make it fit into my buy box, and I'm only buying what can allow me to sleep at night. If it's on the fence, I'm not doing it in 2023.
So you learn about underwriting the DCSRs, the cash out,
finance.
the financing more.
Yep.
You learn, it's funny because I know I know your background was a lot of wholesaling, so I know wholesaling the closing day is great. You get paid, and then there's no issues after that. But when you got to do the fixing yourself, there's a lot of work to do.
Man,
right?
when you get the calculation of how much cash you got to bring to closing, when you thought you only had to bring 12 and you really got to bring 19, like you're absolutely right. So closing day, if you're not prepared, it can end up being like a stomachache instead of a celebration.
Okay.
So that was lessons learned.
You learned a lot about construction this year, right? Like as well. Like tell me about that. Or
So I would say, I got my associates in mistakeology in construction technology this year. So doing everything backwards as far as budgets. I tried to have like a virtual person do like the takeoffs and the budget and the estimate and things like that. Overall, it was helpful, but once you really get started, you got to have those contingencies in place. You got to have those reserves in place just for those what ifs. And with renovations, it's not an if, it's a when, or it's not as an if, it's a what. It's like, what is going to be the problem, and when is this going to go left? Who's not going to show up? What are they going to do wrong? And when is what I expected to happen not going to happen? So I think if you go into a project not being pessimistic, but just being a realist of this, just nature at this point. Like even with nature outside, you can't complain about the rain and things like that. With this business that we in, especially the construction part, I think the forces are just the forces, and the nature is just the nature. So you just have to be as prepared as possible. And I think cash is the best hedge against what could go wrong, because you can't accumulate time. You can't control human beings because that's the labor that's on a job. So for me, man, budgeting and reserves is the only way that I feel like I could wear a bulletproof vest and walk into a construction project at this point. So reserves, that's the biggest thing I would.
So you learn to then pad your estimates. So you're putting more away.
And there is no straight rule either. So you could ask 6 people that run projects. Somebody's gonna say 5%. Somebody's gonna say 25%. And going back to doing the deal to where you can sleep at night, if you do that deal and you pad it at 5%, just be okay with that, because anything could happen for that 5% to go away. Even if you check every single box, you could have the best team in the world, and then you could have a hurricane on a Wednesday evening hit that it's not even a named storm and come do destruction. So,
So we're going to get to like what you changed in 2023 in a second, but before we get to that, is there any other lessons you want to highlight? Any lessons you've had this year?
Man, it's a team sport. I mean, maybe one name might be on the settlement statement, or maybe one name might be in your LLC, but you're gonna have to pull together all of the resources that you have available. And when I say resources, not just cash, man, people have been like my leverage from the single family project in Metairie, like Curtis in the back, man, Kurt and Mindy, they saved my life on that one. Hitting up Clyde all throughout the night, all throughout early mornings, just trying to get an understanding of how to approach construction. Elridge and Anitra on finance, man. Jay Alexander, because you tried to crack Baton Rouge, so we still trying to buy deals in Baton Rouge, really leveraging everybody that's around to try to cut that learning curve as much as possible. So anybody that's trying to be a lone wolf, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Like you making it difficult for yourself. Now, still use some type of discernment with and be selective with who you take advice from. You definitely want to qualify them with whatever thermostat you have internally. But once they pass your checkbox and your sniff test and you qualify them to coach and share things into your life, man, go 1,000 miles an hour and just leverage those mistakes.
Yep.
So that's what I'm gonna continue to do next year. So if I annoyed you in 2022, phew, like just imagine next year, like the text messages are coming even more next year. Yep.
So what are you changing in 2023? Like so with some of these lessons and that,
Yeah,
like what
2023, man, is a year of reserves and liquidity. So we started this year like just trying to burr and just trying to like just stack rentals, but that can be exhausting mentally, emotionally, and also on finance, because you have so much capital out at 3 and 6 months at a time, and then you're waiting for it to come back. And another thing also, when I talk about doing deals where you can sleep at night, if you have to bank on that appraisal coming in at a certain amount for you to get out of that deal, I would highly advise either have somebody on the back end to where you could bring cash to the closing to get you out of that so you can sleep at night, or don't do the deal so you can sleep at night, because we can't control the appraisers. That's just it. Unless you have a product to where you could select your appraiser, but then that kind of begins to limit you on the amount of products that you could actually shop around.
Yeah.
Because every mortgage broker won't allow you to do that.
Yeah.
So flips. So definitely flips. Anything that can get us a cash injection into the business to where we could build reserves. I'm gonna go ahead and say it now. So we actually launched a leasing service called Spree Lease. I went ahead and got my real estate license, so we only offer leasing to investors. So anybody that's a property manager that's as an overwhelmed staff, or anybody that's self-managed that just don't have the time to do the marketing plus the showings plus manage all the document prep to get somebody leased up into this unit, just give us a call and we'll handle all that. We got a back office, we already got agents, and we do the marketing all the way to the execution of the lease.
Okay.
But that's another fee-based cash business that's inside of this business just to keep us afloat. So
Yeah, I think you learned right. The BRRRR strategy is awesome. I love BRRRR.
Yeah,
I do a lot of BRRRRs, but the BRRRR is a get rich slow
Yeah.
strategy. It's pretty safe and pretty consistent, but it's not. I think that's what you learned, right? That's why you want to bring in the flips and the more capital flip things that are in capital.
Yeah, you
business.
gotta be liquid to use that cash to hedge against those unforeseens, because that's what's gonna save you is the liquidity.
Yep. Okay. So that's really the focus this year. Some new revenue streams, more cash. So still burrowing, but just
we still want to focus on building that rental portfolio. We're not going to abandon that, but we just learned that just only doing that is dangerous.
Yep.
Only doing that is dangerous. So I don't know if anybody else in here that had accounts go negative, but this was a year where we had accounts go negative when they shouldn't have. Like just being unprepared for those unforeseens, and liquidity all day long is my focus. Yep.
Cool. Well, we're gonna let Emile likes asking the questions more than answering the questions. So I'm gonna let him move to asking the questions. We're gonna pull up a couple of different people to talk. So next is Ricky. Where you at? He's gonna take my spot, and Emile's gonna ask him the same questions.
Yeah.